Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video, and there is a lot for me to cover, especially as we get closer and closer to WrestleMania 40, but AEW also had a big episode of Dynamite this week with Big Business, and I want to talk about that as well. And there's one other non-wrestling related topic that I want to discuss. So, before I jump into all of that, be sure to follow me on Twitter. That information is in the description below. Also in the description below is the email address where you can send me questions for my upcoming question and answers video, which will most likely be up after WrestleMania. So if you're interested in sending me questions, you can send them to me at the email address listed below, or you can direct message me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. So be sure to do that. And with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. So before I dive into the wacky world of professional wrestling, let's talk a little bit about Godzilla, the King of the Monsters, the subject of my self-published book, and all-around nice guy. Godzilla's a good, nice guy, ain't he? But one more accolade that we can throw at Godzilla now is that he is officially an Academy Award winner. Godzilla -1 winning the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects this weekend. And, I'll say this, and I stand by the comment I said originally when, nominations were going out and everything. I don't need the Academy Awards to validate the things that I like. I like what I like, and if the Academy doesn't see that for whatever reason, that's on them. And I don't need Godzilla -1 to get an Academy Award to have my opinion that it was the best film of 2023 be validated. And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting Godzilla -1 to get a whole heck of a lot of love. I was proven right when the nominations went out, when it only got nominated in one category, which a lot of people said was malarkey and ridiculous. And I think, personally, the biggest snub of this year's Academy Awards. People can cry about Barbie and all they want, but to me, -1 got horrifically overlooked. Like, even I had low expectations for what it would get nominated for, and even I was surprised at how much it got snubbed. At the very least, it should have gotten a nomination for Best International Film, and it not being nominated in that category actually shocked me, because I thought that was the one category it was a shoo-in to get nominated for. But it didn't, and it got the one visual effects nomination, which it deserved. I thought it might lose to the creator, Gareth Edwards' film from last year, which is a solid film, a nice, solid science fiction film. I like Gareth Edwards, so I checked the film out, and I thought it was solid. But it looked beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful looking movie visually, and I thought maybe that would win for Best Visual Effects. It didn't. They gave it to Godzilla -1, so at least Godzilla -1 got something. I'll say that much. And again, I don't need the Academy to validate the things that I like or anything like that. I think in my entire life I've watched maybe 15 minutes of the Academy Awards. I have not watched the -1 victory speech. Very happy for the team. They deserved it. They absolutely deserve that award to create for as small of a budget as they had, to create the visuals that they created for that film is absolutely remarkable, and they deserve a ton of credit. And it's nice to see the Academy at least recognize their hard work and gave them that. So, but I would have been praising them whether they won that award or not. But thinking positively, it is kind of cool that now I can say that Godzilla, the King of the Monsters, the greatest monster in the history of cinema, is now an Academy Award winner. And, for all the accolades that Godzilla's achieved in his long 70-year career, it'll be 70 years in November, Godzilla now has an Academy Award under his belt. And I was like, you know what? Good for the Big G. Good for him. That's pretty cool. And it's like, all right, at least -1 deserved that. I think it deserved a lot more. But it's pretty cool that it did get that award. And now it's like, it's this weird validation of tokusatsu and kaiju films and that style of filmmaking that for my entire life was completely, looked down upon by American critics and the film industry and things like that. Like, in America, Godzilla had a very dubious reputation for years and years, most of my life, which I thought was garbage, quite honestly, because I remember, because our film industry started with things like King Kong and the Harryhausen films, which I adore. You're going to sit there and tell me that those films look amazing by today's standards? Absolutely not. But they were building blocks to get to what we have today. And Godzilla to its credit, was one of those building blocks as well. It was a huge pop culture icon, a Japanese export that found worldwide recognition and created filmmaking and special effects techniques that were used in our films years later. Where do you think Jabba the Hutt came from? Where do you think the Rancor came from? Where do you think a lot of the creatures from Star Wars came from? A lot of them came from techniques that were used in the Godzilla movies. And George Lucas, among many inspirations for Star Wars, one of the inspirations he always listed was Godzilla. And so Godzilla did have its influence on American films, and I've always felt like, the way American critics would kind of thumb their nose down at these films, I thought was criminal and very short-sighted and not fair, and really not fair. It's like, they're pointing out every imperfection in films that were made decades ago without a lot of technological advancement or high budgets, and they were able to create something that entertained people around the world, and yet they were kind of looked down on. So for Godzilla to now, at 70 years old, win an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, that's a weird, come from behind, little engine that could, coming out of nowhere and winning the race. Very, very cool, if I do say so myself. So, yeah, more and more people are starting to get it. -1 has kind of opened up people's eyes to Godzilla a lot more than many other projects that have come out starring the big guys. So, it was nice to see -1 get at least this, and I thought that was cool. So, yeah, it's a historic moment for Godzilla, and I think all the Kaiju and Godzilla fans that are celebrating this, go ahead and celebrate, because I think it's a momentous occasion, and it is historic, and it's nice to see something that we've loved our entire lives get recognized in some capacity, when we're normally the ones that are usually having to scream from the mountaintops, like, no, these movies are good, you're wrong. And now it's like, now everybody's starting to come around and agree with us. I'm like, we told you, we told you, there was more value to these movies than they were given credit. But that's enough Godzilla. Let's jump into the professional wrestling, specifically WWE, and what's going on there. A little bit of ranting and raving from me. First of all, I want to say that the road to WrestleMania thus far is mostly pretty good, and I'm generally happy with the direction, especially for the big matches. I still say, Cody better walk out of Mania with that belt. If it's not the plan now, it better be the plan. He better walk out with that friggin' belt, or I'm going to lose it. But I've already said, with the tag match, if the faces win, Cody's probably not going to win in night 2. If the Bloodline wins the tag match, then Cody's most likely going to win night 2, because they're not going to have the babyface lose 2 nights in a row, and they're probably not going to have Roman lose 2 nights in a row. That's my guess. But whoever wins the tag match is going to lose the world title match the next night at Mania. Most likely. I could be wrong, but it makes the most sense to me to do it that way, because you give, if you have Cody and Seth lose, then you give Cody extra obstacles heading into the match in night 2, and his victory has more of like an underdog appeal to it. And if Cody and Seth win the tag match, yeah, Cody gets a fair fight with the Bloodline barred from ringside, but that also opens it up to some other screwy shenanigans where they can could easily get around that with, like, all Seth has to do is turn heel and cost Cody the match, and that's it. So again, we'll see how all of that plays out. But what I really wanted to talk about, 2 wider topics that have been, on Raw we got a WrestleMania match somewhat set. The match has been announced, although we don't know all the participants yet. And that is the Tag Team Championship match, with 6 teams crammed into this thing, 5 challenging teams and the Judgment Day, the current tag team title holders, in a ladder match. Now, some fans are speculating that this is going to be how they separate what used to be the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles. I don't know if they have plans to give both brands their own sets of tag championships, which I think is ridiculous. I think having just one set of tag champions is just fine, but whatever. 6 teams, cramming 6 teams into a ladder match. I'm not a fan of this. I've said it before, and it's the amount of hatred I've had for these multi-person car wreck ladder matches has grown and grown to the point where I'm almost tempted to treat these matches like bathroom breaks at this point because I can't stand them anymore. I cannot stand them because, and I've said it before, and I'll reiterate those points why I'm not a huge fan of these type of matches. And people go back and remember with reverence like the Edge and Christian, Dudley Boys, Hardys, TLC matches, and I'm like, yeah, they were for the time they were very innovative. If I'd known what they were going to create, I would have. I would have done something to stop them from happening, or at least stop them from ever happening again, and just no more multi-person ladder matches. But go back and look at those matches and the lead up to them. Like there were rivalries and angles and moments building animosity between those three teams. So you had three teams that felt like they were the three biggest teams in the division, and they were all trying to kill each other. And on TV every week, and they had storylines and interactions, and they hated each other. And so when you get to this big gimmick match, it felt like the culmination of weeks and months of build-up to get to that point. And it was in a situation where like the latter situation was like the ultimate equalizer, where all the teams were in a no disqualification environment to do whatever they wanted to do to all their hated rivals. The problem with the Money in the Banks and matches like this, which are kind of cold, I mean, it's literally just, we're going to take the Judgment Day and have them defend the tag titles in a cold match where we're just going to cram a bunch of teams in there. And AEW ran into this problem. Ring of Honor, or, that one Ring of Honor pay-per-view where Dante Martin got his ankle twisted around backwards taking a spot, a flip pile driver from somebody he's not feuding with. So it's like, what's the psychology behind trying to kill everybody in a match that has no story behind it? And that's kind of what I'm getting to. Like, a lot of these gimmick matches work best when you have a storyline and a blood feud where you need to have it settled with a somewhat extreme situation. Think back to the original ladder match, the first WWE/WWF pay-per-view ladder match was at WrestleMania 10. Shawn Michaels got stripped of the Intercontinental title, Razor wins the vacant championship, and then Shawn comes back holding his own version of the Intercontinental title, which he claims he never lost. So you have a controversy there. And so it's like, all right, we're going to take both belts, hang them up above the ring, and whoever can claim both belts is the true undisputed Intercontinental champion. Great, bing, bang, boom. The gimmick enhances the story. It raises the stakes. For the time, it was very innovative. It was like, ooh, a ladder match. How's that going to work? Because, I didn't see Stampede Wrestling or anything like that. So it was a very interesting concept, and it made sense within the storyline that was being told to us. And it complemented it perfectly. And that's what's missing from modern ladder matches, where it's just an excuse to cram a bunch of high flyers in there and to do a bunch of meaningless spots, where it's like, again, Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys, they spent a lot of time convincing us that those three teams hated each other, and they were competing with each other at the highest level. Now, it's no storylines, a cold match, where I'm not convinced that they hate anybody, they just all want the belt, which I guess, that's a solid motivation and everything, but they do all this death-defying stuff to all their opponents and risk life and limb to their opponents in a story that's about nothing. And I can't wrap my head around. For as ridiculous as Darby Allin's, glass spot dive was, at least I was convinced that he hated the Bucks enough to want to do something crazy like that. At least from a psychology standpoint, at least I can understand, yeah, if I were Darby, I'd want to kill those bastards too. I don't know if that's the way I would go about doing it, but at least I understood his motivation for wanting to do something. Like, within the storyline, the character motivation, like, it wasn't just, let me do this fancy spot just to do this fancy spot. Even though I'm sure that was the motivation for it behind the scenes. On screen, like, I could accept that the Darby Allin character would want to do something extreme to get back at the Bucks. And here it's just like, okay, so it's just going to be the Judgment Day defending the titles against God knows who, and I don't care. And the saddest part is, they had a ready-made storyline for the Tag Team Championship. You had R-Truth, thinking he was a member of the Judgment Day. Everyone loved it. And then Miz came back and defended R-Truth when Judgment Day beat him up and, effectively kicked him out of the group that he was never a part of in the first place. People loved R-Truth. Miz and Truth have a history. They pair themselves up. Judgment Day are the tag team champions. Bing, bang, boom. There's your title match right there. What are you doing? Like, it's easy. And I will take a match with story and purpose and character behind it over any kind of mindless spot fest any day of the week. And that was a tag title match that I would have legitimately been interested in. And they took it away just to do a mindless ladder match. And here's my question. It's like, okay, why not? Hear me out here. Why not do a four corners tag team match? Because they did it at last year's WrestleMania. They did two of them, one for the men, one for the women. Why not do one of those with the other four teams, and then do Judgment Day versus Awesome Truth? And if you want to make that a ladder match, fine, go ahead and make that a ladder match. At least, like, I don't know if a ladder match is completely justified in that situation, but at least there's a story behind it. And it kind of works. And it's not 12 guys crammed into this stupid match where there's like 100 ladders and people are jumping off of the things and people are doing things for no rhyme or reason. And that's one of my huge problems with these matches. They are becoming increasingly forgettable. And it's sad because, you know, these guys are risking life and limb in these matches. These are dangerous matches. Again, I referenced the Dante Martin spot in Ring of Honor / AEW or whatever. And it's just, I just can't sink my teeth into it. There's no story there. There's no character there. It's just spots for the sake of spots. And that's not, the intrigue of that or the value of that has diminished, at least for me. Maybe I'm just turning into an old man yelling at the sky, but I can't anymore with these ladder matches. I just friggin' can't. Can we go back to having a ladder match with some story and purpose behind it, for the love of God? Can we go back to having a ladder match with just one or two ladders at ringside? Why does every single one of them have to have 100 ladders scattered all over the ring? Like, I don't know. To me, it's just mindless nonsense that's gonna be forgotten in a couple of weeks, because we've seen it all with those ladder matches too. They've done them so frequently that we've just seen it all at this point, and that makes them even more pointless, unfortunately. And it's the same thing I've said about TNA doing the Ultimate X all the time. It's like, look, these Ultimate X matches were a lot better when you had some kind of story behind them, and now it's just like an excuse to cram people into a match to do spots, and that's it. And the Ultimate X hasn't meant anything in years. And these ladder matches haven't meant anything in years. And it's, Money in the Bank, I mean, yeah, the prize matters, but again, like, couldn't you, like, make it, like, I don't know, a battle royal, and then the final two get put in a ladder match? I don't know, like, something to where it's not like I'm not watching a match where half of the match is spent setting up a ladder to do these over-convoluted spots and nobody's trying to win. Half the people disappear from the match senselessly so two or three guys can do this contrived spot that they cooked up backstage or something. I can't believe it. I can't accept it. It's just, it makes no sense as a story. And they never do. Hardly. Not for a long time, anyway. And when I heard that this match was announced, I rolled my eyes like nobody's business, because I thought the ladder match was going to be Logan Paul defending the United States Championship against like 6 or 7 guys. And it looks like it's going to be Logan versus Randy Orton for the U.S. title. Maybe Kevin Owens thrown in instead. We'll see. But I had no idea that this was going to be the tag title match. I thought for sure it was going to be Judgment Day versus Awesome Truth, which would have paid off that storyline a lot better. And the other thing I'm really over with these ladder matches, especially title matches, it really hoses the champion, doesn't it? Like, yeah, you're defending your titles in a one-fall match, in a spot-filled car wreck with, in this case, 10 other people. And it's like, isn't that remarkably unfair to the champion? Like, you're almost guaranteeing a new champion in that situation. It's kind of ridiculous. And I feel like a title should be hard to win. And that's why countouts and disqualifications exist. So it's like it's a little extra obstacle to getting the championship away from the champion. And that makes it a lot more intriguing. But when you put people into what's essentially a battle royal and put the title on the line in that, it's like, well, shoot, anybody can win this thing. Like, it's just random nonsense. Who cares? And I don't know. I heard that this match was signed, and I groaned and I groaned and I groaned some more. But again, maybe I'm just an old man yelling at the sky. So, another old man yelling at the sky, ranting and raving, is about heels in professional wrestling and what they should and should not be allowed to do. The Rock and Roman Reigns cut some promos on SmackDown last week. They had an interaction with Seth and Cody. Seth Rollins got called a cross-dresser, and The Rock made reference to Cody Rhodes being a mistake. Very harsh words, although not that harsh when you look back on the history of pro wrestling, some of the things that have been said in the past, namely during the Attitude Era. But whatever, for the time period, they were pretty harsh. And some people thought that the heels went too far. And they were being just a bunch of meanie pantses. And I'm sitting there like, this is too far? Like, what? What? This is too far? Okay. And then on Raw this week, Candice LeRae, who I have not paid any sort of attention to in God knows how long. I have paid that woman no attention at all. She's just, whenever her match comes on TV, I'm like, this is just filler, whatever, who cares? And in the middle of a match with Maxine Dupree, she starts cutting a promo on her and making fun of her for how much she sucks and makes reference to her dead brother. Which was a major talking point coming out of Raw this week. Probably more interesting than any of the long-ass matches that happened on Raw this week. They had this short, filler match that got people's attention because of this bizarre rant that Candice LeRae went on. And, I mean, that's a perfect example of what you've got to do when you're somebody in Candice LeRae's position where she's clearly, not high up on the totem pole as far as the women's roster goes. And she gets put out there for 2-3 minutes or whatever. And, it wasn't that long of a match. And she took that time and made a moment out of it that got people talking. And now Candice LeRae is somebody that people are talking about now because she did something that created some level of intrigue. Now, I've said this before. You have to go very, very far to offend me. And this is coming from somebody who has a dead brother. I'm for whatever makes the storylines interesting and what makes characters more interesting. And what they did on Raw this week added a little bit of intrigue to Candice LeRae and potentially gave people a reason to root for Maxine Dupree. Now, I imagine what was said was they went over it behind the scenes and Maxine knew what was going to be said. I don't think Candice blindsided her or anything. I think they took all of this stuff and used it and they prepared for it. And congratulations, they got people talking. But I'm the type of guy, you have to work very, very, very hard to offend me. And when it comes to any kind of story, not just wrestling, I'm a big believer of letting the heels be heels, let the bad guys be bad guys, let the villains actually do villainous things, let them do awful things. I mean, Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin committed genocide and destroyed a planet. That's pretty awful. That's way more awful than saying mean things. Let me tell you, that's pretty darn awful. Just an instant split-second genocide is something that happened in a Star Wars movie. More than one Star Wars movie, actually. But, that's... You gotta let the bad guys be bad guys. That's my stance, and I've always believed in that. And, you look at AEW, Christian's one of the best things in AEW right now because he goes places that a lot of people don't expect anybody would go, especially with wrestling in the modern age. He says things that are offensive. He uses people's family trauma against them. And he's a dastardly shitheel that you want to see get beat up. It's very simple, and it's you get heat. People want to see you get beat up, and that pays off down the road when he ultimately has his big fall. I mean, this is basic storytelling stuff. This is not I don't think that they were off base or crazy for saying anything. Roman and Rock weren't off base for saying what they said. Candice LeRae was not off base for saying what she said. I think, again, a lot of it was approved beforehand, if not all of it, because, that's the state of modern wrestling. Nothing happens without some kind of approval, even if Vince McMahon isn't there anymore. And when I saw that these were things that were happening online and people were saying that they went too far and that was too mean or whatever, I was like, I don't know, I felt like it made the show more interesting and now I want to see what happens. So it's okay, so because I thought Raw this week was kind of boring, because again, it's the same problem that I have with modern wrestling where every match has to go 2 segments, every match has to go long, and they prioritize in-ring action over anything else, which to me is kind of stupid, because to me, the TV show should work in a way where you do things, whether it be angles or promos or whatever, to make me want to see the matches, and then you come to do like a big match on TV or the long matches at the pay-per-view, then I will be more willing to spend my money to go see those matches. Now, granted, Peacock and streaming being what it is, it's a little different now, but like when you fill up all of your TV shows with pay-per-view quality matches and, back and forth competitive matches that go over multiple commercial breaks, in-ring action feels like a lot less of a big deal. Like, because it's just the norm. It's just like, yeah, I see these guys have 4 or 5-star matches every single week. WWE does it, AEW does it, and it does not add any intrigue to the show at all whatsoever. And if I was watching AEW last week, and they did a flaming table spot with Mark Briscoe, and I'm like, why? Wait a minute. Time out. Tap out. Why are we doing a flaming table spot in a cold match? It's just, all you're doing is making that spot worthless, because you're doing it in a situation where it's absolutely not called for at all whatsoever. And it reeks of almost desperation. They're just trying anything to get people to talk. And here, Maxine Dupree and Candice LeRae just had a little verbal interaction in the ring. It was like, whoa, what did she just say? And that got people talking. And it's like, dude, it's right there. It's right there. That's what works. You have, because again, I think a lot of fans have, put themselves in that Dave Meltzer star rating bubble where they prioritize in-ring action and work rate above everything else. And I'm like, dude, give me a heel that I hate. Give me a baby face that I want to see beat up said heel, and then do the match. It's not that hard. I think we've overcomplicated it to such a degree that, and look, I'm not saying that we need to have transsexual blowjobs or whatever it was Vince Russo was doing. We don't need to have HLA or Terry Runnels having a miscarriage or whatever crazy stuff that Russo was up to. But where Russo and I are kind of on the same wavelength, it's like he likes to add sizzle to the steak. And it's like, yes, absolutely add sizzle to the steak. They have to be good ideas, and they have to be compelling ideas. But absolutely, yes, add sizzle to the steak, because I don't want to sit there and watch long matches every single week if they don't have any kind of purpose or meaning behind them. I'll watch a long match. I like a good long match when it's an exciting situation and it's two guys that I want to see go to war with each other. Not in a cold TV match that's going to be forgotten in a week. And so much of that, it's so weird to me, especially with AEW, with all the programming they have and the guys that get left on the back burner, that they don't get featured nearly enough. And I'm like, dude, if you just cut the match time down in half, you could make room for so many more guys to get moments to kind of shine and give them promo time and give them angles and things like that. Ricky Stark, where's Ricky Starks? What is he doing these days? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I turned this simple topic into a gigantic rant. Again, old man yelling at the sky. But yeah, I was not offended by what Rock said. I was not offended by what Roman Reigns said. I was not offended by what Candice LeRae said. If anything, it's the most interesting thing Candice has possibly ever done, because it was something. And as I've always said, something is better than nothing. And I think back to when I was a kid. I was, this is like, I was 5 years old, going on 6. When Sergeant Slaughter betrayed America and joined up with Iraq in the middle of a war. And I was 5 going on 6, and this was the cartoon character era WWF, and they were doing stuff like this. And I reacted to it as, boo, Sarge! You've betrayed America and G.I. Joe, you son of a bitch! I hope Hogan beats you! And then you get to WrestleMania and Hogan beats him. It's like, it was pretty simple, like, good guy, bad guy storyline to me. And it's weird that wrestling has this kind of restriction on it, where it's like, oh, you're not allowed to go too far with that. And I'm like, dude, I watched Star Trek Enterprise. That was one of the shows I watched during COVID. And they did a storyline that was very transparently a big reference to 9/11, because 9/11 had just happened. It was very obvious what they were referencing. I'm like, so wait a minute. Referencing 9/11 for a storyline, that's okay. Because Star Trek did it. But, because nobody cared about Enterprise, quite honestly, outside of, like, diehard Trek fans. Because I remember even Trek fans telling me it wasn't that good. I watched it, I didn't hate it, but it was, you know, there was some Trek fatigue by that point after all the shows they had produced. But anyway, nobody was talking about, like, anything that they were doing on that show as being offensive or anything like that. And yet if WWE did something like that, it would be the end of the world. Like, and it's weird, like, that restriction that wrestling has on it. So I don't know. It's fake until they don't want it to be fake. And they said, oh, they went too far, and it's a little too real. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. I say let villains be villains, let heels be heels, and tell the most compelling story possible. That's my stance on the matter, and I applaud Roman Rock and Candice LeRae for saying things that got people's attention and made their stories more interesting and made their characters more interesting. I salute you. You did good work.
Okay, and let's wrap this up by talking about AEW Big Business, or more specifically, the debut of Mercedes Moné. The former Sasha Banks is now All Elite, and what does that mean for All Elite? Well, it got him some buzz, for sure, and the reaction she got was clearly indicative of somebody who's a major, major star. I mean, that crowd was all over her in the best possible way, and that CEO chant got over like Rover. It was kind of a very impressive reaction to her, definitely, and it definitely felt like they got a big star. I still have my misgivings about Mercedes as a talent and as a long-term investment. I think there might be an attitude problem there. She strikes me as the type of person that is her own biggest fan, and I think that could get in the way at some point. Her New Japan run also did not go very well, starting with the very first moment, her debut. So already she's doing better than she did in New Japan, but we've still got a long way to go before we'll know if she's a long-term success or not, or if this is going to be CM Punk 2.0. But one concern I did have is that I thought her introductory promo was very generic and sounds like the same thing that everybody says when they first get there, and I wish they had said something a little bit more spicy, and had her be a little bit more intriguing, and come up with an idea, basically, is what I was hoping for. And instead, she just got the same introduction that virtually everyone gets. It's like, hey, I'm happy to be here, and this is my home, and blah, 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 whatever, who cares? So that was kind of boring, but as far as like a presentation of her, she came off like a star, for sure, and it added a little extra level of excitement to the show that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And the rest of the show was pretty nondescript, except for Darby Allin being a lunatic again, and Wardlow losing to Samoa Joe again. Not a whole lot else going on. It looks like Mercedes is going to be targeting the TBS Championship, going after Julia Hart, which could elevate that title. Hopefully, I hope Mercedes wins that belt and then just starts unifying the holy heck out of like the Ring of Honor World Women's title and the AEW World Women's title, and just get us down to one Women's Championship and kind of simplify things. They need to do that across the board. They broke up the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, which feels really rushed because that group just formed. But it's like, can we unify those two 6-man belts? Like, can we do that and just get that over with? But that's another rant for another time. I'll say thank God they changed her theme music, because the one she was using in New Japan was awful. Absolutely awful. So this is definitely an improvement in the best possible way. And, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Again, I thought her introductory promo was a little generic, but the fans reacted to her very, very well, and it came off like a big moment for AEW, which is what they wanted, and it's kind of something that they needed, because they've kind of lost a lot of their spark that made them so exciting initially. That a lot of that seems to be gone now, and they need to start like winning people back and getting some momentum back. And this seemed like a step in the right direction, but again, I do have my concerns about Mercedes as a long-term talent, but we'll just have to see. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching this video. And again, if you want to submit questions for a Q&A video, use the email address down below in the description box. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can also find my Twitter in the description down below. And be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos, and all of that other fun stuff. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and I will see you all next week.